They used to have to get extra players to sit here and foul Shaquille O'Neal. They needed bigger bodies on the court to try to contain him because he just caused a mismatch naturally because this guy was like 260 with a tremendous amount of force and was just bulldozing through everybody. I definitely wanted to touch on this topic, mainly with Shaq and Jokic, mainly because I hear a lot of these talks with Shaq and Jokic, and then a lot of it don't really make sense to me, especially considering how one of the things that I hear a lot of is like basically Shaq and Jokic wouldn't be able to stop each other if they met head to head. Then people are starting to kind of downplay Shaq and his prowess and what he was doing back in the 2000s. And what they're doing is they're just using some stats and what Jokic was doing in the 2020s and comparing to the stats that Shaq was doing it back then and comparing the two and being like, oh, okay, these are numbers that we can equate to each other. First things first, we need to understand something, right? When we're comparing numbers, if you're not over here comparing the numbers across eras and you're not accounting basically pace and then how the points are being accumulated by the three ball or some extra free throws, right? If you're not taking into account the era and the pace in which they're playing to account for that, I'm not going to lie, you're doing it wrong. Whenever you're comparing players and their numbers, you need to account for the era they played in, the pace in which they played in, and then basically where the points are coming from. So especially in today's generation, a lot of the players' points are a bit inflated, mainly because they're playing at a very fast pace, comparable to the 80s. But not only that, they're shooting the three ball at an incredible level, the most we've ever seen the three ball be shot, right? So, of course, naturally what's gonna happen is when you're taking more threes, you're playing at a faster pace, guess what's going to happen? The points per game are always going to go up. And then even that, the rebounds are going to go up because of the pace. Even the assists are going to go up because of the pace. Like, it's really dictated on that. So when we're comparing Shaq, who played in the slowest pace era, and then we're comparing Jokic and what he did in one of the faster eras in basketball history, and then you're not taking that into account, you're kind of doing it wrong. That's one. So, yeah, let's get into Shaq, right? Because I think the description of Shaq and his career needs to really be understood when we talk about how crazy it was what he was doing in his time. And Jokic, what he's doing is crazy as well. But let's really focus in on Shaq right here. Shaquille O'Neal came in the 90s, was going crazy, played on the Orlando Magic, and was giving one of the greatest defenders of all time, Hakeem Olajuwon, some buckets. They were going head-to-head. Shaq was really, like, he's one of them ones at a very young age. Being able to go toe-to-toe with Hakeem Olajuwon is insane. Then he goes to the Lakers, and he had some ups and downs, especially before Kobe was emerging. Had some struggles against Utah Jazz, but especially when he reached his peak, people got to understand how insane of a game changer and game breaker Shaquille O'Neal was. They literally, the main people that was able to slow him down and contain him was Tim Duncan and David Robinson. So I need y'all to understand that. The only people that was really able to try to contain and slow Shaquille O'Neal down was two of the greatest centers, the greatest defending centers we've ever seen in our history, or greatest defenders, period, in NBA history. It took David Robinson and Tim Duncan to really try to contain and mitigate Shaquille O'Neal and what he was doing. The whole league, what they were doing at that time is they literally had to sign extra players, extra random bigs to foul Shaq, hack a Shaq. Literally. They used to have to get extra players to sit here and foul Shaquille O'Neal. They needed bigger bodies on the court to try to contain him because he just caused a mismatch naturally because this guy was like 260 with a tremendous amount of force and was just bulldozing through everybody. Like, that's what Shaq was doing in his time. And again, this guy was doing this in an era where he was like averaging 30 points per game, especially in the finals. And again, they were probably scoring 90 to 100 points per game. So, bro, I'm not going to lie. He's making up for a literal third of the team's output just on him alone. And now when we look at Jokic and what he's doing, Jokic has been phenomenal. I'm not going to lie. Jokic has been one of the greatest offensive players we've ever seen in our lifetime. And I'm not trying to disrespect him with what he's doing, what he's done in his career. But there's something about Jokic in his career that really doesn't get highlighted enough, and people don't talk about enough. And Jokic has, as great as he is, Jokic definitely has a weakness when it comes to some of these double big lineups. For back-to-back years, so let's go to 2023, because 2023 was the year that he won the NBA championship. 2023, when you look at the people Jokic went up against, I mean, he never won. He didn't beat a 50-plus-1 team. But even when we look at the matchups in which we had a Timberwolves team that just got together and they were battling injuries. He faced Jack Landale on the Phoenix Suns and DeAndre Ayton. Then he faced Anthony Davis, where Anthony Davis is really a 4. Great defender, but Anthony Davis is really a 4, a capable 4 who can play the 5. He's not really a 5 that can really match up one-on-one like that. And then he faced Bam Adebayo in the finals. And Bam Adebayo is one of the best defenders in the league. But with all due respect, when you match him up against a Shaq, a Jokic, a Embiid, even a Yao Ming, like a traditional big, it's not something that's good for him because he's undersized. He's like 6'9", and he doesn't have as much weight on him. So Jokic was just destroying him. Got to be honest with that. So when we look at Jokic and what he was doing in 2023 and how he destroyed everyone, we got to look at the competition. Now, when we fast forward to the very next year, what happens when he actually faces a team when they have double bigs, when they have some size and cat that can match up with him? He struggles. He struggled immensely. Jokic definitely struggled against the Timberwolves. I mean, call a spade. He was struggling against Karl Anthony Towns. So I need y'all to ask yourself this. If Jokic was over here struggling with Karl Anthony Towns, what do you think is going to happen when he has to match up against Shaq? If Jokic was struggling against Cat, what do you think is going to happen when he's facing that brick wall of Shaquille O'Neal? Jokic and what he does, and Jokic is great, but what he does a lot of the times is he plays bully ball. He's able to see over everyone, 1. And 2, he's able to move the defender wherever he wants because of his size. He's not doing that with Shaq. And whenever he can't do that to players, that's when you really see him. And again, he definitely has counters, but that's when you really see the struggle for him when it comes to Jokic. So the next year against OKC, almost not the same exact thing, but very similar things was happening. And Jokic's weakness when it comes to his shooting was really emphasized in that series, right? A lot of people want to say that Jokic is this 3-level scorer, and we just got to be honest with Jokic. He's really not. He's more of a mid-range post guy, gets in the paint, but he doesn't really stretch to the three-point line enough. A lot of teams leave him wide open for those threes. Jokic is one of those guys where for some reason, when people are draped over him, he's going to make the 3. But when he's wide open, he's missing a lot of those shots. And a lot of teams in the postseason, they definitely do it. They do leave the 3 ball open for him, right? So Jokic, one of his weaknesses is his shooting the 3 ball. He's not really that effective or great at it. We're just going to be honest. That's not who he is. So he's really working off of the high post and then getting into the low post, right? So when it comes to this shooting and everything, like that's something like the shooting with the 3 ball and compared to Shaq, listen, it's not really moving me. It's not really moving me if I'm going to be honest with you. Seriously, it's just not. So when we got Shaq matching up with Jokic, who's going to be matched up with him usually on the high post, Jokic is not going to be able to bully ball his way down on him. Shaq is going to eat that matchup. And Shaq, even though you can say he's a lazy defender, especially when it comes to the pick and rolls, when it comes to one-on-one, mano-a-mano, Shaq versus whoever, he's a pretty capable defender, especially one-on-one. Like, you just got to give respect where respect is given. So when I look at the matchup between Shaq and look at Jokic, and let's say, hypothetically speaking, that they have to match up with each other, I'm not going to lie, Shaq is probably going to foul that man out the game. And I wholeheartedly believe Shaq is probably going to do whatever he wants with him in the game. Whatever he wants. Jokic is not going to be able to do as much as he wants. Again, Jokic is a man who struggled with Karl Anthony Towns guarding him. So, one, what do you think is going to happen when he has to face Shaquille O'Neal? One. Two, what do you think if it took Tim Duncan and David Robinson to slow down Shaq, what do you think Shaquille O'Neal would be doing to Karl Anthony Towns and Rudy Gobert? What do you think he's doing to that crew? Do y'all really think that Karl Anthony Towns, Rudy Gobert is going to slow down Shaq? I don't think so. Not at all. Do you think Chet and Isaiah Hartenstein is going to slow down Shaq? I don't think so. I really don't. I really, really, really don't think so. Honestly speaking. So the matchups that Jokic has went up against, I wholeheartedly believe Shaquille O'Neal would dominate those matchups without a doubt in my mind, to the point where they'll have to get extra players to match up for the size, because Chet was a guy who even got in foul trouble against Jokic. What do you think is going to happen with Shaq? When I think about the roads in which they had together and the roads that each of them have to take, the question I ask myself when it comes to both of these guys is, okay, how would Shaq do it? How would Shaq fare in Jokic's time and in Jokic's shoes, and how would Jokic face vice versa? And I think Shaq would see a lot more success than Jokic. In Shaq's shoes. Because, again, they needed Shaq to be that opposing force. They needed Shaq to be that dominant force. And, again, he was still, even though a lazy defender, he was still a very capable defender at his time. And a rim protector that was being feared in the league. So Shaquille O'Neal, man, and what he was able to do in his time, and when we look at it with Nikola Jokic, I don't know how people are picking Jokic over Shaq. I honestly don't. I don't understand how. I don't. Because y'all have to ask, don't ask yourselves these questions. What do you think Shaq is going to be doing to Rudy Gobert and Cat, a tandem that Jokic struggled with? What do you think he's going to do to OKC, Chet and Hartenstein, again, that Jokic struggled with? You have to ask yourselves these questions. And then you ask yourself, how do you think Jokic is going to fare against Tim Duncan and David Robinson? I don't think he's doing as well as Shaq. And I think Shaq in his shoes is doing great. And they affect the game differently. They definitely do affect the game differently. But I'm not going to lie. The more and more I think and talk about Shaquille O'Neal and him in his prime, I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to lie. I don't think there's really – I think Shaq has a case where in the best 3 years of someone's career, even the best of the best, I don't know how anyone else is picking anyone else but Shaq. I don't know how someone will pick LeBron over Shaq. I don't know how someone will pick Kobe over Shaq. I don't know how someone pick MJ over Shaq. Even though those guys bring so many things to the table. They can handle the rock. They all can facilitate for the crew. They all are around 3-level scores, right? Versatile both offensively and defensively. Man, I get it. But when you have an unstoppable force in Shaquille O'Neal, where there's literally nothing anyone can do, you need to be able to amass some of the best defenders in NBA history, to contain that man, and they still have a very hard time of doing it. I don't know how you can just pick anyone else over that unstoppable force. He's a cheat code. He's a literal cheat code. And athleticism, as much as skill is great, you can't teach athleticism. You can't teach talent sometimes. You can't teach natural born, God-given talent, natural athleticism. You just can't. And when you got a guy in Shaq who's that big and that size and that agile, he's actually very agile too. There's only so many things you could do with him. Again, teams have to sit here and literally gain and amass random players, random bigs to account to foul him, one, but try to match the size. That doesn't even just affect your team defensively. That affects your team offensively, because now I need to bring in bigs that isn't that sound offensively, that hurts us on the other side of the ball just to make up for that man. People don't think about that. This is the annoying part, right? This is the annoying part. How are you going to sit here and say that Jokic is far and better? He's far and better away, a better player than all the centers Shaq faced when the man faced Hakeem Olajuwon and Tim Duncan. You could literally classify Tim Duncan as a center. And again, if we're going to look at the other side and look at the centers that Jokic faced, what centers did Jokic face like that? He didn't see Embiid in the playoffs. Embiid is always hurt. What centers has he really faced? He hasn't faced a lot. So a lot of people do. They just want to pick holes and pick arguments on Shaquille O'Neal and down him. But now when we start doing the same thing with Jokic and really start deep diving and really start connecting these dots about Jokic and who he's been going up against, oh, no, it's hating. You can't do that. You're over here being disingenuous. Come on, man. And again, Anthony Davis, I don't know why people keep bringing him up. Anthony Davis is a 4. Anthony Davis is a 4 who can play the 5. But Anthony Davis, to me, is not really this guy that, like, I'm not looking at him in NBA history. The main thing with AD is his rim protection on the help side, his versatility, because he's very wide range where he could definitely guard. He's probably one of the players that can guard all 5 positions. So the versatility is amazing. But, man, like, he's not a guy that I'm like, all right, go guard Hakeem, go guard Duncan, go guard Shaq. I'm not asking that of AD. I'm just not.